I think Kehlani is one of those artists where you're asking the question, why is she not more popular? Why is she not more popular? Like, she could be bigger. She's like almost like an underground icon over the past decade.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like everyone knows who she is, but she doesn't have these big radio songs, big pop songs, which she's shown she doesn't need. And I think that this, to me, is a disservice because you clearly made these attempts at it. Like, What I Want, you can't tell me it's not an attempt at like a pop hit.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't need to be working, one. that's the other part. And then two, it's like, we didn't need this. At least let it work. Good afternoon, beautiful people. This is another episode of Album Mode. We review a new album every single week. We look at the lyrics, the production, the overall aesthetic of the album, how the album fits into the context of that artist's career. For everybody watching on YouTube, make sure you like this video, share it with your people. Of course, leave us a comment. Let us know how absolutely wrong we are, how horrible we are, how stupid we are. Let us know in the comments. We're on our way to 5,000. You're helping us get there. My name is Adriel Smiley, a.k.a. AdrielSmiley.com, a.k.a. Adriel Smiley Official, a.k.a. The Godfather, and we're here with His Royal Highness, a.k.a. The Bunny, in the market for some shorts, King Grant.
Welcome back, people. It's Album Mode. This time we're reviewing Kehlani. Crash. Jacking a little bit of Charlie XCX's sauce right there because I was named Crash a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's Crash by Kehlani. I think that this is one of those albums that I was looking forward to, but not aware that it was coming out until it did.
It was a bit of a surprise joint. Like, I gotta say off the bat, I want to apologize to all Kehlani fans. I'm not one of them.
Oh, wow.
Kehlani is one of those people who I just have not been able to get into. I've tried many times, and I could never get on that page.
Never resonated.
It never resonated. And I did start following her last year. And she's one of the few artists who I follow on Instagram, but don't really follow their music.
Wow.
And so I actually was aware this was coming out because she posted on Instagram saying album coming soon, something like that. And so I had a little bit of a heads up. This album was on the way. But like I said, I'm not a Kehlani listener. So I really only knew it came out when it actually came into my email inbox rather than on Spotify. But I wanted to mention that because I'm not listening from new ears. I listen to basically every Kehlani album. Even though it's never stuck, I still give it a chance every single time. But I wanted to kind of put it in perspective compared to last week. Now, before I started to review this project, I had 4 Kehlani songs liked on Spotify. Don Tolliver, I have 100 songs liked.
Wow.
And so that's kind of where I'm at with Kehlani as someone who I've been aware of for a long time, a fan of her style. But in terms of her music, I haven't really been tapped in.
Yeah, she's definitely has a unique aesthetic. I think maybe it was more unique when she had first dropped like Cloud 19. She had tats all over her. And I remember during that time, people were to the general public, people were like, yo, she has tattoos all over her body. That is crazy. Now that's, I would say, more commonplace.
Yeah.
People are definitely have more tattoos now. More women especially have more tattoos. Women have more tattoos than men.
Yeah,
at this point in time.
I would say that's pretty true.
Statistically proven, bro. That's one of the more interesting things about society today. But I think that she definitely has a unique look. Her sound has been an interesting travel of her sound from the beginning of her career of Cloud 19, which I liked a lot, by the way. I liked Cloud 19 a lot. Over to Sweet Sexy Savage. Sweet Sexy Savage.
Yep.
And then over into the album that she's like looking over the brick wall that I can't remember the name of.
Oh, It Was Good Until It Wasn't?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then now Crash, I feel as though she is taking a little bit more of I don't want to say pop route, but she's more stretching outside of the bounds of what she was originally, which is something that I was kind of surprised by because it seemed as though she had dominated a sound, this cloudy, very atmospheric R&B vibe. Now she's expanded further, so it's been an interesting journey because I didn't feel as though she needed to do that for this album, but she has opted into doing it.
She is one of the originators of the vibey R&B girl era. I
Yeah.
would say her and Janae Aiko
Oh man,
are
yeah.
the top two from that like vibey R&B girl era.
Mhm.
But I wanted to read some words from her before I get into the lyrics because I think that Kehlani is one of those artists where the way her fans view her and the way the general public views her is two very different things. And she says about this album Crash, to an album that changed lives, an album that was birthed from pure fire, an album that freed me, unlocked me, and double dog dared me. We made this album in many cities from sun up till sundown, each creator crafting out of pure joy, passion, and the hunger to carefully craft a new sound. We didn't know what to call this album, what genre it was, where it would land. We only knew we arrived. A crash in any form is the peak height, the moment. It isn't the anxiety of the before or the lament after. It is the ever so imperative present, a space with no remnants, no remorse, and no afterthought. Crash is here at my most free, most fun, most loud, most fueled so far.
Wow.
I thought that was eye-opening to hear because I don't think we're going to agree with how Kehlani feels about the project. Of course, we weren't there when it was being made
Yeah.
and all that other stuff. But I just wanted to highlight that because I think that this is a great kind of jumping off board into what the objective was with this project. You mentioned earlier this, the more pop route. You don't want to say it, I'll say it. This is the more pop route.
Yeah.
I can kind of read that in what she's saying here. Like, I think this is the artiste way of saying it. But I think that that's a big theme of what this project is.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about themes, she's definitely stuck to the romantic, what you're doing, what am I doing? All these vibes about, I want to be next to you. The song Next to You is a good song. So she's still, even though that the way that she describes what her album is like is more experimental and more extravagant than what it actually is, I don't applaud her for at least the attempt. I would say that this podcast is definitely about evolution of artists. Okay, we love artists evolving.
Yes.
I just simply don't think that it was as expansive as what she thought it was. Because if you think about expansion, experimental, and just like going off the wall and stuff like that, Brat came out 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Like that is more what this is describing.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that there's a little bit of a misalignment with how she views her album versus what is actually coming out of it. I think that her subject matter is still very similar. So like even from Next to You, What I Want, she's really going for a lot of love. A lot of love. I think that she describes it in interesting ways. Like What I Want, she's very confrontational about like this is exactly what I want. Versus Next to You or What I Want and even 8. Okay. Shout out to her, asking for what she wants, demanding what she wants. 8 is one of those songs where I think that it's fun, right? She's being very fun about the numbers of 8. And I think that it kind of reminded me of 3435 by Ariana Grande.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right?
Yeah.
Even the vibe of the song is similar.
Yeah.
It felt very Ariana Grande coded. And I think that even though it's in your face, the whole chorus is like, I want to get 8. So I think that that's fun. But I was like, a little Ariana Grande, just a spritz.
I think you bring up Ariana Grande as a name I thought of a lot with this project because there are a few songs that I was like, this is like a watered down Ari song. Like this could have been a good one on Ari's album. But the person who I really think of whose lane she's in, and this person definitely surpassed her because they went around when Kehlani first came up, is Summer Walker. I think from a lyrical standpoint, I see those two as sisters.
Okay.
And I think the success that Summer has had with that lyrical style is more akin to the actual production. And I think that a song like Better Not is where you see Kehlani get into what is considered her bag lyrically. Like she's one of the early toxic queens. Like before we had the toxic kings like the Brent Faiyaz and the Party Next Doors, Kehlani was in the mix.
Yeah.
Getting it popping in a toxic way. And on Better Not, this is probably like peak toxicity. Peak toxicity. And if you're singing a song at the top of your lungs, you got to talk to someone.
You're part of the problem. You're the problem.
100%. In the pre-chorus, she says, was gonna find you, but I didn't know where you was. In broad day, posted up outside the bar. I almost died the night when I caught you in somebody's Benz. I better not catch you doing that shit again. And you're not wrong, because you're not mine. I would choose to dance with you in every life. Though we're just a little more than friends. I better not catch you doing that shit again. Peak toxicity.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're the problem. This possessiveness, even though he literally said that they're not together. You're not together.
And that part where she says, though we're just a little more than friends, if you're telling someone, I better not catch you doing that shit again, you're a lot more than a little more than friends. So I wanted to highlight this part because this is the kind of lyrics that Kehlani is known for. Even if you're not tapped into her music actually, this is the kind of persona that you think of when you see Kehlani. So I think her sticking to her roots lyrically makes a lot of sense here. I do think that's the one thing, even though the sound is more pop when we get to production, the lyrics stay in the same pocket. That really hasn't changed. And Better Not is a prime example of that.
Yeah, I think that she's also having fun with it though, because I think that she's not even making it. There's some artists who, when it's toxic like this, or purposeful toxicity like this, they almost take it a little bit too seriously.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Giveon.
Yeah.
Right? Giveon is doing that. But there's people like Brent Faiyaz who sees it almost as like a joke. But it's still like existing in the toxicity, they say.
It's playful. It's like, yeah.
Yeah,
you'll
but,
get over it.
So I think that she is definitely seeing it in a more playful way. I think that's, Better Not is still like that, but I think that there's some playfulness to it. I think that overall the lyrics, usually when we talk about lyrics, we also talk about like how like sharp the hooks are or stuff like that. I feel like her hooks are okay. Nothing really breaking the bank, nothing that was really getting stuck in the brain. It's kind of, they exist to progress the song, but not so much to progress my life.
This can be our transition into production. It's so anti-dynamic. I've always wondered, like, what about Kehlani is not sitting right with me? Like, I understand her lyrical prowess. I like her style. I think she can really sing. And I think there's just a dynamic quality missing to a lot of these songs. And you see that in the hooks. And so you talked about the hooks are like, they get the job done.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like. These are not so bad where it's like you tried this thing and it didn't work and now we hate the song. It's more like you should have tried something and instead you just kept it easy, stayed in the pocket. And I think it starts basically at the top. Like the intro, Groove Theory. I did not like that song.
You didn't like it? I didn't like the first half.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It does get better, but like as an intro to your album, starting off so rough,
yeah,
like
that's bad.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, that's a mistake.
So to me, it's like even though the second half is better, and the second half honestly could have been the intro itself.
Yes,
like,
I agree.
We didn't need a 4-minute intro. It's basically almost the longest song on here. It's like if you take only the second half and make that the intro, then we are kind of a little more intrigued heading into this. So that is the intro from a production standpoint. I'm like, whose crazy idea was that? Because I already have a weird thing about the single After Hours. I'm like, I get it. It's a Kehlani album. What is a single for a Kehlani album? Like, which direction do you go in? Because do her fans want to hear that kind of Kehlani, or do they want to hear something more like Groove Theory?
Yeah, I think Groove Theory is weird because the very beginning it's almost like a Amy Winehouse vibe, right? Where it's much more panache when it comes to the drums, and it's more of her really trying to sing off the song, which it's not a problem in the sense that like it was bad, but it's a problem in the sense that this is not it's also just like not representative of anything else that happens in the album. Like there's no other song that's really like that.
No.
So I don't really understand why that's happening, but then you're like, we're going to do that for a minute and then we're going to cut into like the actual juice where the rest of it actually sounds similar to the rest of the album. further back into her discography. Like, I don't really understand why they did that instead of just like starting it at the minute mark.
Yeah, I think this album really goes in so many directions in the worst way.
Yeah.
And like I said before, I wanted to start out with how much of a Kehlani fan I am not. So all the Kehlani fans can understand where I'm coming from.
I
saying all
actually
this.
am one. I've been listening since Cloud 19. I think there was a time where I can't remember what happened. I think it was Sweet Sexy
Savage, yeah.
Yeah, Savage, that I heard that on, I heard all the fanfare about it. So I was like, okay, let me go back. So I went back and listened to all the other albums. And then I went forwards. And I think that I like a lot of her music, but the thing with Kehlani that was always been something that kind of agreed me with her is like, there's no song where I'm like, this is a banger, or this is the song that like I gotta send to people.
We're on the same page.
Yeah, there's a lot of just like very solid songs, very good songs, but no bangers.
And that's been her whole discography.
Yeah.
And so when I was gonna review this project, I reached out to some Kehlani fans and I said, okay, tell me what the deal is. Because after I was being the single, I did not feel any type of confidence going into this project. I'm gonna be real with you.
You didn't like the sample?
I love the sample, but I didn't want Kehlani to do that. Like, leave that kind of stuff to Ice Spice and Glorilla. Like, there were the people to sample songs we don't need sample. Kehlani, you can do better than that. But there's never that song that you're like, I need this song. I gotta send this to someone.
Yeah.
And so the Kehlani fans told me this is probably her worst project.
Okay.
And that was eye-opening to me because I listen to every project, but I'm so not a fan that I'm like, it's unfair for me to even, say which is better than which.
Yeah.
Because I really don't care about all of them as a whole. And I also asked some people I know who are not Kehlani fans.
Okay.
I said, okay, you're coming in here pretty much blind. What do you think of this? And they had the same sentiment we had of basically being unimpressed. And so when I realized that basically both sides of the coin were not impressed, I felt more comfortable in what I was feeling about the project because I wanted to be honest in myself in the fact that I'm not a fan. And maybe I'm just biased in the negative direction. A song like Deep.
Yeah. You didn't like Deep?
No, I like Deep.
Okay,
That's one of my favorite beats on here production-wise.
Yeah, I like Deep a lot.
I think those like rolling drums, they sound like real drums at the beginning. I like that a lot. And for a second I said, oh my goodness, are we about to hear Styles P on this beat? Like
Styles P on the Kehlani.
Are we about to get Fabulous and Kehlani working together? But that's what that beat was giving. So I like that beat a lot.
Yeah, I thought the production for that was cool too. I think that even her vocals in it, like she's like straining to sing. But it actually, when you strain to sing, sometimes it's like it sounds horrible. But I think for sometimes you're trying to convey an emotion by the vocals being strained.
Yeah.
Like, even like Keisha Cole does that sometimes.
Yep.
So I think that the strained vocals, when it's like deep, deep, and it's like, you can hear.
It works.
She's like wobbling in the notes. I think that is really good. So I think that song overall was good. I do think that a rapper could have appeared on it 100%. But she does rap like herself sometimes. So
True.
So it's not really outside of the sphere for her. But it was interesting. I do see what you're talking about where like somebody else could have just like hopped on in the middle of this.
For sure. Like it reminded me of Superstar with Usher and Jadakiss. So I saw something there. The one thing about this project that on maybe the second listen, it really stood out to me is that these songs really could have been better sung by someone else. And a song like Deep is one I think of a lot, and Crash. Crash was my favorite song on here. Because it's the most like almost traditionally R&B soulful type of song. But Crash and Deep sound like her songs.
Right.
And
yeah.
And if like her had these songs, these maybe would have been her singles.
Yeah.
And I think like that is probably her biggest flaw production wise is she takes stabs at all these different sounds and doesn't knock any single one of them out of the park. And there isn't that moment where you're like, oh my goodness, I'm happy she tried this because we get something, and let's bring it back to Drake one more time. This is Drake's moment. But I think about when Drake did Controller, and it was basically the Toronto anthem for 6 months in a row. Huge song, big hit for him. And that was him basically making his big attempt at like dance hall and the patois and the accent. And that was the time when it worked.
Yeah.
And it was a huge deal. And it was like, thank that he tried this because it worked in this instance. There's none of that on here. And I think that production wise, these attempts really don't they don't feel worth it. Like they're not bad songs, but they don't feel worth it. And a song like What I Want, I want to know what you think about that one, because this is a back-to-back samples she has on here with After Hours and then What I Want. And I drank the Kool-Aid. I thought Kehlani was an artiste. I thought she was above this. And maybe she's not.
People can get sampled, okay? Being a sampler doesn't degrade your music.
It's the kind, like last week when Don Toliver sampled Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
That was great. This is not that.
I think that it's not the greatest sample. I think that it definitely could be, I don't know, I think that What a Girl Wants part, for it to be as prominent as it is, it kind of reminds me of like First Class, where
with Jack Harlow?
Yeah, with Jack Harlow, where the sample is doing the heavy lifting for the song, whereas a sample should often be like the undercurrent to the song. You know, you're doing all this crazy stuff, and then the sample is like, oh, you know, you hear that in the background.
Yeah.
This is like that What a Girl Wants, like that being basically, it's the hook. It's not the chorus, but it's the hook.
Yeah.
Is an issue, because it shows like you're kind of like the container that the sample is operating inside of versus the other way around. So I think that even though I think it does sound good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, I think it sounds good. I just think that it's the use of the sample is kind of like inartful. But I think the song overall is solid. It's solid, right? But that's kind of like it for like a lot of the songs. Like I feel like I get that with a lot of the songs. Maybe the best song that I'm just like, this is just like really, really good. It's probably like Tears, right?
Okay.
With Omale. Because I think the best part of that production wise is the piano in the middle of it. That is actually just like adding some extra zest to this very regular Afrobeat song. But other than that, like, but that's what I'm even saying. Like, it's a very regular.
It's
Afrobeats track.
Yeah, like
very regular.
So I have my likes. I try and write down my likes for this project, and Tears is one of them.
Piano, that keyboard in the middle, like dun, 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 dun,
it hits. Dun, dun. And this is one of those songs where I was like, did this need to be Kehlani? Like,
no, it didn't.
Like this could have been an unnamed singer, and it would.
Don't get me, trust me. When it comes to like Lose My Wife, I'm like, this is the most anonymous song I've heard in a very long time.
And it's crazy because that song lyrically, and this is where it's like, how you get to this place lyrically with Lose My Wife, but sonically it's like the most nondescript song. Yeah, like that this whole album is just so many versions of that. Like Tears, I actually like the song Tears, but that could have been an Omale song, and that could have been insert unknown Spotify singer with 10 monthly listeners, and it would have been, I feel like, just as good. That's her biggest, I guess, flaw, is that she doesn't have a lot of these moments where I'm like, only Kehlani could do this.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think about when we reviewed Party Next Door's project a couple months ago, that's basically his whole project. Like, that's his, I won't say only skill, but that's his main skill.
Yeah.
His main skill is like, you're not getting this anywhere else. And she's almost the opposite, where it's like, you could get this
anywhere else.
Anywhere. Yeah. And on Susia, I think it's pronounced, with Jill Scott and Young Miko, that song grinded my gears. Because she ruined a Jill Scott feature. I saw Jill Scott on this song and I said, okay, let's go. We're going to get something here. And Jill Scott did her thing, but I think it was a waste of a Jill Scott feature. But Young Miko ate.
Yeah.
Absolutely ate. And hearing all of them together on that song, it brings it back to Kehlani. It's like, what is the point of this?
Yeah. Also, the production of it is like really
all over the place,
lethargic, and it's kind of like a country song, but not a country song, because I feel like it wants to be a country song with that electric guitar.
Yeah, and that little waltz at the beginning.
Yeah, but I feel as though everybody singing on it is trying to run away from it being a country song.
They're outrunning it.
Yeah. So there's even just like dissonance there that's happening when it comes to the singers and the production. And then there's another song that is like similar to like that I'm trying to find. I think it's Crash. No, not Crash. Better Not. When we were talking about it, we were like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, the lyrics for it and the story for it is pretty good. But that one, again, it also feels like a country song. But I'm like, this is not a very... Kehlani's appearance on it is not making it a Kehlani country song or dragging it in a certain way that makes it different. It's just like country song template. And Kehlani stack it on top, and then let's just ship it, you know?
You know what it sounds? It sounds like the song or the performance that you get in a competition singing show.
Yeah, that's what I felt like too.
That's exactly it. And it's crazy because I think that vocally she's always been like highly regarded. And I think it's only hitting me now that I'm like, yes, she can sing, but I don't think you could pick her voice out on a feature the way you even could with Jhené Aiko. And the song I think of is when Ari Lennox did her cover of Going Down by Mary J. Blige. And also both great versions of the song, but Ari's vocal inflection and the way she did different things on that song, you hear that song right away and you're like, oh, this is not Mary J. Blige. And it doesn't mean that Mary J. isn't good anymore, but you hear right away, you're like, okay, this is a different type of sound. And that's not on this project at all. So I got no more pressure because I think I've said enough.
Yeah, we've kind of touched on everything.
Yeah, I think we can go on to time the cohesiveness of the project.
Yeah.
Basically not there at all.
No, and I think it's a shame because I think most of her albums actually do have cohesive. But this is jumping from like Better Not, again, is a country song, and then we're talking about Tears with Omale, and that's an Afrobeat track, and then we get to Deep, which is like an R&B track. After Hours, or not After Hours, there was another song. There was another song that felt like a Weekend, like it was like a Dawn FM rip. So I feel like there's a lot of different disparate genres trying to mash into one box, and not working because it doesn't feel. I think maybe a couple of songs like flow into each other. Like the first couple of songs, first 2 or 3 songs actually flow into each other. But
That's
after
about
that, it's kind of just like, we're putting them out there and see what other people want.
Yeah, this is not cohesive at all. I think this is like a disservice to her fans.
Oh my God.
No, I'm being real. Like, I think Kehlani is one of those artists where you're asking the question, why is she not more popular? Why is she not more popular? Like, she could be bigger. She's like almost like an underground icon over the past decade. And it's like everyone knows who she is, but she doesn't have these big radio songs, big pop songs, which she's shown she doesn't need. And I think that this, to me, is a disservice because you clearly made these attempts at it. Like, What I Want, you can't tell me it's not an attempt at like a pop hit.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't need to be working, one. that's the other part. And then 2, it's like, we didn't need this. At least let it work. And then we could say, you know what, we're not happy with it. You let Nas down, but at least you got a hit out of it.
Yeah.
A lot of these are not even working. So when I think about how this affects her career, to me, this hurts it. I think that, again, if you're going to make these pop attempts, have them work. Like, we can criticize it off the merit of the art itself, which is not what everyone else is doing. But if you're making these pop attempts and then the song isn't good and it doesn't work, it's kind of like, what was the reason?
Yeah, we're kind of sacrificing your idiosyncrasies as an artist to be like, oh, let's try to make a big song, and then it flops. It's like, why did we make this song? Like, so I think that when it comes to her career, I think that this is a flub, definitely. There was also an album before this that came out that genuinely had no idea it came out.
2022.
Blue Water Road. I don't know what happened. I mean, well, actually, it was during the pandemic. So, but like, it just completely fell into a black hole for me. So I've heard literally every Kehlani project before that, and then I just didn't even know it existed.
Damn.
I didn't even know it existed. And then this came out, and I was like, "Oh, let's make sure that I'm up on the Kehlani songs." Like, anytime we do an artist, especially if they have a big backlog, a big catalog, I'll just sample 3-4 songs from each album, so make sure I know where we're going. And I'm like, "What is this album?"
It's so funny when I was looking through like how many songs I had saved. I have a song saved from Blue Water Road.
Yeah.
And I said, Adriel, look at you.
Yeah, you're in the cut, bro. You're aware. So yeah, for me, this was almost a jump from it was good until it wasn't. And it's not a great jump. I feel like it's a stumble. I think that overall for her, I think that she's still gonna be in the same spot though. Like I don't think that
she didn't lose any points.
Yeah, she didn't lose any points. Like I don't feel like she's like gonna fall off because of this. Because I do think Kehlani's visage, like she's like kind of like a character like Rhianna, actually. She's like a low-powered Rhianna, where like her aesthetic, her visage, her vibe, all this other stuff is part of why she's as popular as she is. And her music is like just another extension of that. And I think that Crash not being as good, people are still gonna be like, I'm still banging While We Wait, Sweet Sexy Savage. I'm still gonna be playing that shit. So this just didn't make the playlist, is what I'm trying to say, basically.
Yeah, she's in the same spot. And I think like she is still seen as someone who like people know.
Yeah.
Even though her music is not there. Like I think about her feature with Cardi B, Ring. I went back to that. Forgot that that song even existed. But when you look at other features on that Cardi album, Kehlani almost stands out as like, you're clearly the least famous of all these people, but we know who you are.
Yeah,
so
she's
it makes
cool.
sense.
She's cool. Kehlani is cool.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So no matter what, even if she's technically like the less famous person, she is extremely recognizable.
And exactly, and I think like that's something that she hasn't lost from this project.
Yeah.
So how it affects her career, she still has that. I think when you talk about the cover,
the cover is cool.
The cover is cool. When you mentioned Crash, like that looks like a Crash for sure. Is it she's like a mermaid of some sorts? Like, or is that just the glass?
Yeah, it seems like the glass is supposed to be like legs or like almost like fins. It's funny, like you see this cover, and then literally the Charlie XCX cover is like just like the reverse. Like instead, Charlie XCX is like on top of it like this, looking into the window, and then this is her like posing backwards. You know,
so different.
So I think that it looks really good though. The color of the car is really nice. I like the glass shattering, all that type of stuff. I think it looks really good.
I like the cover.
Yeah, I think the cover looks good. So I think that it doesn't fit what's happening on the album though.
or does it?
So I think that the cover looks great. Is it a vinyl cop? Or is it a no skips?
0 for 2. Not a no skips. Not a vinyl copy.
Yeah, me neither.
One more thing about the cover, though. You mentioned her basically legendary visage. Almost none of her albums have that on the cover, and I think it's been a while since they have. Like, Sweet Sexy Savage is literally the closest to having, like, her full face and, like, body on the cover. She looks a little bit different than that now. But I think that's something to explore in the future for her is, like, a album that has like her classic visage on the cover.
Yeah,
I think her fans would actually love that to see like, okay, the Kehlani we see on Instagram and on the internet, let's put that on the cover. So I think there's something there.
Yeah, so I'm up on the cover, not down on the cohesiveness, down on vinyl cop, down on whether or not it's a no skips. Definitely skippable. There are definitely skippable songs. So now the moment everybody's been waiting for. I think in record time.
Yep.
In record time, how do you feel about Crash by Kehlani?
Crash by Kehlani is a 5 for me. I was telling someone my score during the week, and I said 5 is as high as you can go. You can argue me down, but you can't argue me up. This album is just decent music. I think she can sing. These songs are passable. They're inoffensive. But there's nothing dynamic enough on here for me to say, you got to listen to track 7. Crash is my favorite song on here, the title track. But I think there's a plethora of artists I'd rather hear sing that song than her. So for me, a 5 is a 5 still feels high because I don't know how much I'm going to listen to this after this review. But it's a 5 for me.
Yeah, so for me, Kehlani, Crash, this is a 4, I would say. And I could have gone lower, but I think it's there's nothing that's tragic. There's nothing like really bad. It's just a lot of mediocrity, sustained mediocrity.
That part.
Sustained mediocrity, and a lot of songs where I'm like, Ariana Grande could have made 8, you know, her could have made this song, you know, this person could have made that. There's a lot of that, you know. Some songs I'm like, yo, this feels like a Weekend song, which I did not think that would. And it's New Weekend, which is like not in the Kehlani space at all.
Yeah, she gives more Old Weekend.
Old Weekend,
yeah.
So, so I think that there's too many artists that it feels like she's borrowing from that just making significantly better versions of that song. And then a lot of songs where I just don't feel like there's a standout. Even a song like Groove Theory, which I think the second half of it is really good. The first half of it is not.
No.
So there's a lot of, it's a mixed bag, and it's a mixed bag of it's all right, which is a 4 to me. I feel like that's a very strong 4.
A very strong 4 is a crazy sentence.
It's a 4. It's a 4. Gilded 4.
Kehlani fans, let us know, where does this rank in her discography?
I think this is the worst one.
I think it's the worst one as well, but like I said at the top,
Yeah.
I'm not the Kehlani connoisseur.
I think While We Wait is my favorite by hers because that's the one that I like the most. It was good until it wasn't. Was solid too.
Yeah, it was good until it wasn't as solid.
Yeah, but this one is nah, this is not it, bro.
Yeah, I think that this is a misstep for her. Happy she has new music out, but I think that she can do better. Excited to see what happens after this. I think that will she make these pop choices again? That's a good question.
Yeah.
I wonder how that is, or will this be the direction she lives in now?
Yeah, it's weird because I don't think she even needs to. I think she is just like in a perfect spot. Like if you look at her followers on Instagram and her monthly listeners on Spotify are basically the same.
Yeah, which is rare.
Which
for
is
someone
rare.
like her.
Yeah. So I think that she can kind of just make the music that she wants to. Doesn't have to extend beyond who she really feels that she is, and she's vibing. You know, her celebrity, like everything is for her, just feels like rock solid. So maybe that's part of the reason why she feels like, okay, let's expand, do something new. But it did not work this time.
And I think too, the direction she did it in is what kind of bothers me the most. Like they have on Spotify, of course, fans also like, and you can kind of guess the names that are right beside her: Ella Mai, Kiana Lede, her, Danny Lay, Normani, Janae Aiko, Tiana Taylor.
Yeah.
And a lot of these women have not had a hit song, but the ones that have, it's a hit song that fits what they already do.
Yeah, she's also the leader of that pack when it comes to like listenership.
You think so?
I think so. She's a larger listener than Janae Aiko for sure. Ella Mai probably as well.
Okay.
Who else is that on that list?
Maybe you're right. More than Normani.
Yeah, more than her, more than Normani. So she's
Tiana Taylor. Yeah.
So she's technically the leader in this pack.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. When you go down more, it gets to Summer Walker, who I think would be the real leader if you're going to include her in this. But you're right. Kehlani is one of the leaders. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's very surprising.
So, so she is kind of Summer Walker is probably, Summer Walker. But she is one amongst the leaders.
100%.
She's above other people that you would be surprised to hear that she's ahead of.
And she's been here longer. So I think her being one of the leaders is definitely apt. Follow us on Instagram at Album Mode Pod, at Album Mode Pod on Twitter, at Album Mode Pod on TikTok as well. Leave us a rating and a review on all your podcast platforms. 5 stars, not a single star less. And Album Mode on YouTube. Yes, you're watching this on YouTube. Like this video. Leave us a comment. Of course, make sure you're subscribed. Until next time, know yourself, know your worth.
Later days.